One thing we all should recognize is the field of science is no different than any other profession. They cling to their prejudices and presumptions just as tenaciously and just as emotionally as all professions do. And someone has once quipped, trying to find an objective scientist is as hard as trying to find a Christian who loves their enemies. So I'll leave that one alone. We're going to go down a path tonight that's a little different. This whole idea of the divine watchmaker, if you will. The fact that one approach, it's an approach that appeals to me in dealing with evolution. It's easy when you start talking about these kinds of things to get mired armpit deep in fossils and geological arguments, half-truths and of all kinds, and many falsehoods of all kinds, and even many deliberate deceptions. And you wallow around in that world. That's one approach. And even if you do that competently, of course, it refutes evolution for lots of reasons. But there's another approach that I think is more practical, easier for me at least as a systems engineer to relate to, and that's the path we're going down. Now, it's interesting that modern science today, that you and I have the advantage of, has revealed that even the simplest mechanisms are complex machines beyond our imagining. This dichotomy that was proposed between living organisms and machines has been refuted. Science, in effect, has refuted Hume and totally vindicated Paley. Fred Hoyle, in his writings in 1981, pointed out that the speculation of the origin of the species, the famous work by Darwin, has turned out to be wrong. It is ironic that scientific facts throw Darwin out on the one hand, but leave Paley, in effect, the ultimate winner. So Michael Denton, now there's an author you want to get familiar with. He's an evolutionist. And yet his book, Evolution, A Theory in Crisis, is a fabulous reading if you have any technical background, because even though he's an evolutionist, he points out eloquently and competently and thoroughly that in almost all fields of science today, evolution no longer is a satisfactory rationale for what we think we know. And one of the things he points out, that although the tiniest bacterial cells are incredibly small, see, the whole concept of Darwin's, he spoke of a simple cell. Well, today we know there is no such thing. Even these small cells, is in effect a veritable micro-miniaturized factory containing thousands of exquisitely designed pieces of intricate molecular machinery made up of 100,000 million atoms, far more complicated than any machine built by man and absolutely without parallel in the non-living world. So the fact that our living organisms are machines, very exquisitely designed machines, in effect validates Paley's argument and puts us on sound ground as we look at the premise of evolution as being totally contrary to fact and reason. But let's move on a little bit. We talk about the watch. You know, my ability to convince you that my watch came around by accident is, of course, absurd. And yet, a normal watch on your wrist is what's called a simple open-loop system. And the wrist that it resides on is far more complex than the watch, because it's a complex closed-loop servo system. I'll come back to that. It even adapts itself to the ambient conditions. If it's invaded, it has armies that fight off the invaders, called white corpuscles. And also, to a large extent, it's self-repairing. Now, as a design engineer, one quickly recognizes that the wrist that the watch is residing on is a vastly more complex design challenge than the watch itself.